Hello and welcome to the Space Between Ideas. I'm Blaine Gates. It is Friday. It's been a lot of work, It's day 72. Day 72. And there is some wear for tear. Is that how you say it? This has been a long process, and it's been a fantastic process. Yesterday, we just finished the state purposes checklist. We went through all of the purposes. Now, of course, there's still there's like an other, like at the very bottom there's other. So I mean, obviously, you can come up with more purposes. The scientist, the physicist, Dr. Thomas Buchholz, that wrote the book Create Crucial Insight, he he gives the option of saying, hey, actually, there could be other possibilities here. So feel free to add your own purposes, and put them in one of those categories that we talked about. Is it something? Are you motivated to do something, like to act, to perform actions? Are you motivated to reach those goals? Are you motivated to reuse the aspects of the project as you succeed? Or are you motivated to create plans or to look at risk tolerance, or gain a sense of direction, goals? Or are you motivated to shape your potential, to build your reputation, to get some certificates, to get some exposure, to maintain or improve your wellness? All right, so there's those three different areas, and there's some other purpose that you might be driven by, or other people might be driven by. And you can work with those things. If you can understand people's purposes, what really moves them, then you can use those things to move them. Either try to align them with that purpose in the work that they do, or use those things as rewards as they're doing things that they might not be so motivated to do. So then we went back into the state drive checklist. Now look at this, all right? So look, we got two C's over here. All right, so yesterday we talked about what? We talked about competing. So competing is when you have a relatively high level of effort. It's called diligent. And you also have a relatively high level of success called leading. That's competing, all right? Now the thing is, like, there's I don't know, I guess you can think of at least two ways that you move from competing down to coasting. All right, so coasting, if you think of a car, this is the beginning, right? So you're in a car race, and you're not even pushing your gas. You're just like looking around. You're just looking around. You're in a car race, and you're just looking at the scenery. And then you're like, wait a minute. If I'm going to do well in this race, I'm going to have to start pushing the gas. So you start pushing the gas, and what happens? You become more diligent. You start focusing. You start steering. You start hitting those curves, And slowly you start, maybe more than slowly, over the years, you start to develop skills, and you become a better and better race car driver. So as you become more diligent, slowly you start getting more skills, you become more successful, you're in the leading category, you are competing. All right? Now, but eventually you start to get old. Maybe you have too much money. Maybe something bad happened in your life, and you start to what? So we're talking about moving from diligent to laid back. You start to reduce the amount of time and attention and effort, or maybe something else takes your attention. And you start coasting. So the car, when you're coasting, that's when you take your foot off the gas and your car keeps going. Now, is it a good thing or a bad thing to be coasting? It depends, really. So let's talk about first the bad, and then we'll talk about the good. All right, so the bad is like, it's like that movie, Who Moved My Cheese? All right, the movie. It's like that audio. I mean, I saw it on YouTube. I don't think I read the book. Anyways, there's a book called Who Moved My Cheese? The basic idea is that people are working for cheddar. People are working for money. And we're all trying to figure out some kind of source of money. We're providing services to whom? All right, so that the person, the people, the entities, the whoever you're providing services to, that's the cheddar. They are the ones that are paying. All right, or you're selling a product. All right, so you have access to getting some resources. You put it together, you create this product. Next thing you know, people stop buying it. Why? Because there's other offerings in the market. There are some changes in technology. There are changes in style and fashion and preference and utility, and there's just changes. Everything's constantly changing. So what happens is those customers move. Who moved my market? Who moved my revenue source? Where is that money going to come from? And then, so some people, when they start coasting, if they coast in a bad way, it means that they start slowing down. It means that it's flat, right? They're coasting on a flat road, and eventually their car will slow down. They will make less money. So the problem is that if you stay in coasting for too long, for some people, then you eventually go back to recollecting. That is a bad place to be, especially when you get older. Like, why would you want to be in recollecting? I mean, if you have saved enough cheddar, then okay, so a lot of people retire and they have enough money to survive. Now, so my father, his one of his jobs right now, he's a celebrant. A celebrant is the guy who officiates at a funeral. So the first job is he gets a call from the funeral home, and they say, okay, go ahead and meet this family. So he goes to the family, he comforts them, and he talks to them, and they put together some of their memories, and they talk about how they're going to organize the funeral. Usually before you go to the gravesite, sometimes you will meet in the funeral home. Maybe there's a viewing. Maybe there's some people are going to sing. Maybe some people are going to talk. So they have to organize the schedule. And we don't talk about it a lot, but sometimes it comes up that he says, you really need to keep working. When you hit 60, there's a lot of people that hit 65, and as soon as they retire, within a year or two, they're gone. They're done. Their body they got nothing to do. Either they have some mental problem because it's like, well, I'm not useful anymore. I'm old, and they start freaking out, or their body just gives up, or emotionally, they don't feel useful. They're not sure what to do. Like, there's a lot of reasons that a lot of people die just a couple of years after retiring. So maybe you were coasting, but you had a job. And then once you don't have that job anymore, you slowly go to this recollecting phase. That's the bad way. All right. Now let's talk about the good way, because it's like the question is, can you have a high level of success with a low level of effort? All right. And that reminds us of a checklist called state styles. All right. So let's start from the left-hand side. Now, the first, can we do this? All right, so we talked about procedural, right? So that's the P down there. Procedural. What does procedural mean? So procedural means that, because you have to train your staff, right? You have to teach them what to do. So you have to teach them to be more diligent. And after they become more diligent and they're putting in more effort, eventually you got to teach them how to move into a leading position. Usually you can't move into a leading position unless you automatize, unless you follow a process. So this means follow a process. So if you're following a process and you're very diligent, you're in competing, right? Now, let's move from competing to what? All right, so then we move from competing to embedded. So embedded is as you develop one process, sometimes you become so good at that process that you can, with the same basic process, you can achieve more results. All right, with the same machinery, maybe you can achieve more results. You can produce two different types of products, or your staff becomes more efficient, more effective, or there's a change in technology, and now you're able to get more work done with the same amount of staff. All right, so But what about the next phase? So this is the interesting part, right? So how do I move to coasting? This is what coasting looks like. Okay. So, all right. So this is called effortless, effortless. Effortless is coasting, right? Effortless, just by the whole concept of it. If you think about it, if you take your foot off the gas, you're using no effort, you're using no fuel. But in this case, in the effortless work style, there's a possibility where you do no work, yet you still accomplish the result. Now, this is the $1,000,000 question. How do people do that? Well, one way is to train. If you have a training program where you are, okay, so I'm in a mid-level management position and I train my staff so that they can do all of their jobs without me having to do nothing. Fantastic. I've trained other people to do my job. And then I take over, so my boss still gives me some assignments, but then eventually I take over his position. I train another guy to do my old position. Like eventually I get to a point where I've trained everybody. So, okay, so like for example, if I move from one management position to another management position, this management position is still being done after I move up. All right, so that is one form of effortless. When somebody else replaces you, that that function is still being accomplished, and you, in relationship to that role, you are coasting. You don't have to do it anymore, but the result is still achieved. Now, if somebody is removed from there, then of course it doesn't work. So that's one way, is to find people to replace you, to train other people. Another way is um, to adopt some software technology to try to figure out what kind of, I mean, look at what happened to McDonald's. Okay, so you walk into McDonald's, and in the past, they were paying people $5 an hour. It's cheap. Let the people, like, let these kids work. I mean, at least they have a job, right? But then these bozos are like, no, we got to increase the minimum wage. And then McDonald's is like, well, we can't afford to pay people that minimum wage. If people would just work for what we would give them, then at least they would have a job. But since the government wants to tell us how much we should pay people in a free market society, then why don't we just create computers? So now we have these digital computers, all right? So now it's effortless. There is no human labor. They created a program. They created a console. It sits there. You can do everything. You can order. You can pay. You don't need staff. The other interesting thing about technology, it doesn't pay tax, right? I don't know why the government allows this. Like, are they even thinking about it? So if I pay an employee, then the employee has to pay tax, right? And the business has to pay tax. So the business and the employer are paying taxes. But if you raise the minimum wage, the person doesn't have a job, so he's not paying taxes. And the computer doesn't pay taxes either. But anyways, that's beside the point. The point is that through technology, we have been able to replace people. So if you, for example, like look at my business, all right? So I use my own phone. I upload it to YouTube. I upload it to Instagram. I can do this myself. I don't have anybody else that's helping with this process. All right. So in the past, I would need to hire like a like a whole TV crew to film me and to edit the video, and then I would need somebody else to like what? How are we going to distribute the video? Or we're going to like make DVDs, make VHS video series, and sell it. Like there was like a whole. There's so many different people involved with this process, and now it can just happen automatically. All those people, all those roles have been replaced with this thing right here, this device, with this website, with this service. Now, at some point, as you can see, I'm going to be I'll probably create some kind of online course. I'll take all of this experience that I've gained teaching these different checklists, and then I will create like an actual step-by-step with worksheets, with case studies, with all kinds of different things so that a person would be able to buy it, a complete digital product which is already put together. and then get trained and understand how to do it, how to use these checklists in their life and thrive. All right. So there are ways that you can coast. I mean, after I do that, what? So then, on the one hand, I will that effort will be effortless. That this idea of how to train people, one element of that would be effortless, and I would still be getting paid. So this is like less effort, but still successful. Coasting, positive coasting, using the effortless style of work. But on the other hand, it's like maybe what? I just stop working. Like if I stop creating videos, all right. So after the 101-day challenge, and before I start some other kind of endeavor, there's going to be a period where what? I reduce the amount of hours that I'm working on this endeavor. I become less diligent. And then will I be able to remain in a leading position? Thank you for tuning into Space Between Ideas. I'm Blaine Gates.